Good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. This is Monday, November 8th, 2021, and this is our regular council meeting. We have an agenda that you've seen in advance, and we will at this time allow anybody to mention any conflict of interest of which they might be aware. And so you can mention anything along the way, and it's important that you do. We have minutes from the October 18th meeting that have been circulated. Any corrections or additions to those minutes?
I would move we accept the minutes as circulated.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Will there be a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Cindy. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes from October 18th as circulated, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Delegations. I see no delegate. I guess we move right along to number 6 on the agenda, unfinished business. And number A under unfinished business is about the budgets for the coming year. The last year, perhaps, that we will have a budget for the current population and boundaries. So Dan, why don't you tell us what we need to understand about this?
Okay, just the where we're at right now, we're still waiting on information from the province to help us with our budget. One of the main things outstanding is the policing cost. We understand there's an increase coming for that, but we're not aware of that amount as of yet. We're finding that inflation, it seems to be impacting all areas of our operations, whether it be materials we purchase, fuel cost, pretty much everything seems to be trending upwards. Just some general comments on the budget draft that we're working on so far. We were fortunate, we did receive a 4.1% increase in the tax base this year. The average was significantly higher around the province for municipalities. But again, we're still fortunate that it went up. We've had some years where it's gone the other way on us. And just looking overall, and I'll get into it in a bit more detail once we look at the asset management stuff, we seem to be significantly behind on our street and sidewalk improvements. For example, the amortization on that alone is $212,000 per year. But as council is well aware that the replacement cost of a depreciated item is significantly more than the original cost. So that is one of the outstanding things in the village portion of the budget. The water and sewer right now, just looking at the normal cost of living, so to speak, increase of 2%, and the projected 2% increase in the power bills this year. And this is a result of increased power purchase cost with our contract going up on January 1st, and increased cost to our contract for the distribution maintenance. So those sort of seem to be some of the key points that we seem to be hitting on so far. So it certainly looks like there shouldn't be any significant budget increases this year for the municipality. Again, a lot will be based on council's interest in capital projects once we get through the budget process and into next year, what we want to get done. But having said that, we do have gas tax money and reserve money in addition to our general operating capital improvement line item. So those are just sort of where we're at with the budget stuff. If there's any questions or comments on that, again, just still waiting for some information, and then hopefully we should have a real good draft of the budget done within a few days after we get that.
Councillors, any questions or comments?
I have a historical question. How long has the projected tax rate remained at 1.23?
It's been there, Sheldon, probably for 25 years or something like that. But what saves us, how we've been able to do that is by the tax base growth. For example, here, the total taxes charged to the taxpayers have increased by 4.1% this year. So that's basically through that and through operation efficiencies, how we've been able to maintain the tax rate.
Thank you.
And with the water and sewer and the light commission, so you're saying that our costs are increasing by 2%. So are you saying that we're likely going to be looking at a 2% increase in the fees there for the customer?
Yes, that would be my thoughts on it.
But this
And
isn't set in
again,
stone, right? Yeah,
Uh, Pardon?
this isn't set in stone yet, right?
Not at all.
No, not at
Okay.
all. This is just discussion on it. And again, as council's aware, like basically all of our day-to-day operation costs come out to X, and then whatever we have left over is what we have for capital projects and improvements. So the reason to keep bumping the rates up by a little bit each year, it helps us maintain the systems, and it also avoids huge increases down the road. For example, there's some communities that freeze their water and sewer rates and don't increase them for 10 years. Then all of a sudden they have to increase them by 30 or 40% to catch up. So there's councils for the past 20 years has been always been more in favor of bumping them up a little bit each year as opposed to go with 0% and then have to play catch up.
Do you have the comparison from other places?
For tax rate and water and sewer rates and all of that, yes.
The water, sewer, yes.
Yep. Yeah, and the average, I'll get that, Cindy, the average, I believe we're right around average for water and sewer in the province. For example, in the power rates were, I believe, well, I know we're below Edmundston and MB Power. I think we're close to St. John Energies on the power rates. And on the property tax rate, we would be below the provincial average, certainly on that.
So when, oh, go ahead, Sheldon.
Sorry, thank you. Over the years for water and sewer, I take from your last comments that there has been a very small increase over the years. In general, are there a lot of questions about that? Do people have concerns about that, or do they want to know why we're doing it, or has there been silence every time we've done this?
No, each year when we issue the water and sewer bills, of course, they come out in the spring of the year in March. Of course, everybody, once they get a bill, we probably have, I don't know, 20 people might reach out regarding the bills. But I think that would be the norm, even if we didn't do an increase potentially, but why are they so high? One of the issues more so around the rate than we have, the questions we get on the water and sewer side is the equity aspect of it. For example, if we have a person living by themselves in an apartment, their water and sewer rate's the same as a family of 4 living in a home, just the way that our per unit cost is done. And council had a report down where we looked at individual water meters for all the properties inside the municipal limits, and council, I guess the light board sort of backed off looking at it just with the cost to implement that system. And you still need a minimum charge on the system anyways. For example, just because somebody's not using the water, we still have to provide that connection and service. You still end up with a minimum charge. So there's no easy way to bill for water and sewer. Our council sort of decided on the per unit rate that we have now is the policy, but that's not to say that council down the road couldn't change that.
Okay, thank you.
I would say too that in the spring of the year, I do hear people who are unhappy that they're paying an increase in their water bill in particular. Jason, I saw that you had a hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I was on before council, I was on a committee that was one of the things we looked at was how to bill for water rates, whether we went to a metered system or something. I remember that was quite a few years ago now. And I just know too, I've had those complaints or questions, I shouldn't say, I wouldn't even call them complaints, those questions as well from people. And similar to what I would have said last year, if we can prove that there's a need for the cost to go up because we're unable to maintain the system that we have or whatever, if those costs are needed, then that helps me justify that. But if we don't have that proof to say that we're just raising it because inflation's going up or just because that's what we do, then it's hard to justify and I won't vote for it. So just when we get down to the brass tacks of it, just that's what we need to be able to prove, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's right. The Light and Water Commission Board years ago, and one of the reasons why we have such detailed information now on our capital asset management plan, for example, is if the well house project is scheduled at $600,000 and a line improvement scheduled at $1 million, and we'll talk about some of those projects later on, is that we need to have the resources for them. So that's one thing that the board was really keen on getting that information out there, that look, here's what your money is going towards, and this will be the benefit down the road.
So Dan, where will be the meeting? Which meeting will it be where we really talk about particularly the tax rate and the water and light rates? Will that be that won't be at the December meeting where we pass moving around money? That would be at the December council meeting, or will it be at the committee meeting? I just would like to know which meeting will we be discussing this in detail?
Well, I guess the probably to have a committee meeting before the 25th council meeting of November. The province would like us to have the budgets into them. Well, I guess that date may be flexible if we don't have the policing cost. Like right now, tentatively, they want the budgets in by the end of November right now. But where we don't have some of that cost, I don't know if they're going to push it back 30 days from the date we receive it. So we may have to pass it at the end of November meeting.
Okay.
I say have to. I say have to. That's when the government would like it.
Yeah. So we could sort of tentatively be thinking that it will be at the November 25th meeting that we will talk about this in a lot of detail, unless you get the numbers really quickly. But if they don't want it by the end of November and I think probably it sounds to me like the 25th meeting would do the job. I just want people to be prepared to discuss things in detail at a particular date rather than having it in their head kind of for the next 6 weeks or something.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments or questions from councillors? So I will just encourage councillors, if there are specific questions that you have that would help you understand the impact of an increase or what the needs are and so on, please send them to Dan as soon as you can so that he and Jamie can compile all the documents that we really need to answer the questions we need to make a good decision for the municipality. Because we're looking at it as how we can do what we have to do as a municipality. And we're also looking at what people that we represent can afford to pay, and they don't always line up really tidily. So let's try and make sure that whatever questions we have, we're not just coming to the 25th with them, but we send them in advance so that we have, so that Dan and Jamie have time to collect, especially numbers for us. Okay, so if there are no further questions on that, we will move on then to 6B, local government reform. So Dan, you have some information here.
Well, I don't know how new the information is. I guess from what I'm told, December 1st is going to be the release date of the white paper, and the province is still planning on going forward with legislation towards the end of December.
And your understanding is that the document will look a lot like what we've been hearing it's going to look like. You haven't heard that there are going to be any big surprises in it?
No, my understanding still is that for our area that it would be the school and catchment zone for the, I guess, new municipality is my understanding. But I guess we'll see on December 1st if that's the actual case or not. But that's the impression we're getting so far.
I don't know if any of the councillors were able to attend the session with Minister Alain on Thursday, October 28th. That was the UMNB session that I was unable to attend. Did anybody attend that and get any additional insight or perspective on that? Okay. Well, are there any questions then about local government reform? So we may or may not want to like respond when the document comes out. I mean, they're going to put out this document and then they're going to roll it through. So I guess as soon as we see it, we're going to want to study it and see if there's anything that we're alarmed about or that seems like it's not what we have been warned about. Sheila, you have a comment or question?
Yes. Is there going to be anything organized by local Department for Local Government? Are they going to organize something for our new municipality for them to explain why they're doing it? Because the word out there from people who are hearing things is that Perth Andover is trying to take over everybody else's so they can get their tax money. So I think it would be extremely important that they would be planning something of that type.
I'm not aware that they're planning to explain anything more than have, you know, they've been having all these different roundhouse community Zooms and so on. I'm not aware that they're going to do anything else. I suppose there'd be an argument to our municipality putting out an explanation. I mean, we could publish our submission to the minister, which says we actually wanted to, you know, we'd be fine if we just held firm in our own, and we're not trying to take anybody over. But I don't know how many people would read, you know, our whole submission about what we were looking for municipal reform. Do you think there would be value to put, I don't know, like at this point, we'd be putting out something when we don't really know for sure what the final thing is. I mean, I could do a mayor's message for whatever that's worth, saying this is what they're going to do and we're just trying to make the best of it. But do you think it's important?
I think after it comes out in December 1st, we probably have to wait till January, but we're going to have some kind of a time where people from the outlying areas can ask them questions and that of really of how it's going to affect them, I think.
We don't
And
want to
how
be the
it's
ones.
going to affect us too.
Well, like, it's not like we're defending it. We're not asking.
No.
We're just trying to make the best of what the goals are from the province.
Yeah.
I don't really want to be in a position where I'm saying why. Like, I mean, I can try and look on the bright side, but I'm not sure how much I want to coach other people to look on the bright side when we're just making the best of a new system.
Maybe
this would be
we just
similar
stay
to-
out of it and let the,
This would be similar to a prearranged marriage, I think, something along those lines. But
Yeah, except that there's, all right. Well, unless anybody has anything further to add on that, let's talk about 6C healthcare reform. So I think we saw that there have been two developments in the last few weeks. One was that the minister put on social media, Minister Shepherd, a photograph of a copy of the document. And so apparently they're planning to release it soon. And then the other thing was the upheaval over the weekend with the announcement that there would be no more obstetrical services at the Upper River Valley Hospital. Now that was changed by late Saturday afternoon, but it was just another fiasco of an announcement without any communication and preparation and consultation. Dan, what can you add to what can you say about this agenda item for us?
yeah, no, the only thing that I was just make the community aware also that supposedly the healthcare reform position from the province is supposed to be released, I believe, in the next few weeks. That's certainly a document that we'll want to pay attention to, just to see what the impacts is in our hospital. From what happened last weekend, it certainly appears that they are flexible when they make bad choices. So maybe if there's things that impact our hospital, that if we're motivated to get them changed, maybe there might be some flexibility in the healthcare reform that's coming. But it's just something that, for me, that our community needs to be leery of and pay attention to.
The decision over the weekend was a horizon decision, and our MLA made it clear that it was not a political decision. And definitely the health authority has their hands full of many challenges right now. I will just mention that there's on the particular issue of obstetrics at the Upper River Valley Hospital, there is a new group that's been formed, and they've got a Facebook page as of yesterday. And I know that the deputy mayor of Woodstock and I were chatting over the weekend about this whole announcement and so on. So there could be, people might want to take a look on Facebook for this new group. I think it's called something about, anyways, you can find it on my Facebook page. It's about organizing people to advocate for continued obstetrical services at that hospital. There seem to be lots of people that think that if a lot of people get together and present reasonable views, that we can make an impact. But of course, the Department of Health, not Horizon, but the Department of Health is coming out with this document, and how much they've coordinated what they're planning to say with Horizon Health, we don't even really know that. I think on CBC, they're asking people on the afternoon show to call in with what they want to see in this document. So I invite anybody from this council or in the community to call in and say some things that we need to take to safeguard the services that we need all over the province. Questions or comments on this issue, healthcare reform? I mean, it was such a bad news at the end of the day, Friday, to have a unilateral decision to shut down a whole raft of services with no logic and no preparation. It was very alarming, and it does not bode well. But again, if that was Horizon, maybe the Department of Health has put more thought into what they're going to come up with. Let's just hope so. Okay, let's move on to the next item then. Strategic plans. So a couple weeks ago, our council met together and talked about the various challenges facing our community, and then formulated a strategic plan with 5 pillars, I guess. But what we're going to do now is talk a little bit about how this actually takes place. What actually happens to go from our planning a few weeks ago to results. And so one of the things that we need to understand quite clearly is who does what. So Dan is going to give us a bit of an overview of the roles and responsibilities in implementation, just so that we don't have any kind of misunderstanding about what the different roles are that we play as counselors and the staff plays, how we can get things done efficiently without overlapping and stepping on one another's toes and doing things that were not mandated. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Dan.
Okay, yeah, it was great. Thanks, Maribel. The council, as you know, come up with this strategic plan, the summary page, I guess, just before this slide, that sort of outlines all the goals for each area of the strategic plan, and then we talk about priority actions. And we've sort of done up a sheet based on some interest from counselors and staff, based on who would actually be responsible for each of the priority actions. And I've put that on the SharePoint site with the, I guess, the names tagged to it. So there's different priority actions. We're trying to get so we can track the, I guess, progress of these going forward. So we've changed the way that we do our monthly reports, which you'll see later on. But typically with these, the council as a whole is always sets a policy and direction. Staff work on the background work and implement policy directions and decisions of council. I mentioned the monthly updates. You'll see a new and improved format for that, where I've basically taken in the monthly report our strategic plan reporting for each of those areas. So we've sort of improved that a little bit. But the priority actions, we've got leads for each action. Some are staff, some are council members, some are council members and staff. for some of those. So it's just sort of to keep everybody accountable. The one thing about this plan is it's not our typical 4-year term to get things done. So it's a very ambitious plan. So it'd be great to see what we get done in such a short period of time. So that's basically the gist of it. If people have any questions on that, like for example, if depending on what it is, say for example, if I'm tagged with it and it's regarding a policy or something like that, I would just bring the draft of the policy back to council as a whole to make the decision on what you want to implement, as opposed to me just deciding what the policy is and implementing it. So that type thing, just to make sure that the decision-making process is respected and that people are accountable to get stuff done, I guess is the main gist of it.
Okay, so I'd like to work through an example just because we want to take advantage of initiative and resources and networking and so on. But we also have to be sure that the counselors are doing what the whole council has directed. So I'd like to just sort of take the example of primary care recruitment, because this is something that I have been interested in for a while, and I think my name is tagged to something to do with primary care recruitment. So we talk as a council about seeing what we could do in terms of long-term planning for primary care recruitment. So does that mean that, so as a counselor, as a member of the council, if we were going to organize, say, this meeting we had talked about with healthcare professionals in our community, does that mean that I say, let's have a meeting and then I host the meeting? Or do I say, staff, set up a meeting? Or do I go back to council and say, okay, council, are we going to have a meeting? Like, how much do I do on my own, and how much do I have to be careful that I'm not going out on my own without the backing of council? Or having a meeting is one thing, but what if I struck a committee in the community to throw in prizes and bonuses for people who were going to come back here and practice healthcare? So what if I collected donations from different businesses and fun things to do, and I found different people who wanted to host and work the phones to call people? Is that something that I, as a counselor, I'm not talking about myself as a mayor, but just as somebody on the council, like how much can I do that kind of a thing? Or how much do I have to say, wait a minute, I get the staff to do the legwork there, or we have to decide as a council we're going to implement it that way? Like, that's the kind of thing that I'm not entirely clear on.
Okay, yeah, I think in typical communities, a lot of times it's done different municipalities, but typically my understanding of the way it should be conducted is that, say, for example, and to use your example, Mayor Bell, that if your task is to help coordinate some type of plan to recruit to healthcare people, to me, then that would mean that you would sort of come up with some options for council to consider, and maybe come back and say, look, I think we could do these 3 things. What do you think? And then get council's feedback to say, yeah, let's go this way or that way. But as far as the actual implementation of it, staff are certainly here to support council. Like, say, for example, if one of the things come out was to organize a meeting with counselors and all the current doctors in the community, then staff would sort of get a date from council members when everybody was available, try to get best dates for the healthcare staff. Like, that wouldn't necessarily be a burden on a counselor. It's just more or less the leads on those, to me, is sort of coming up with a direction for whatever the issue is, getting sign off from council, and then do the implementation part of it. The problem, if leads on projects don't get signed off by council, the problem we run into is that if someone starts going down a path that the rest of council doesn't approve of, that's more of an issue. So it's a lot easier to get that stuff sorted out right at the start. For example, if Mayor Bell's going around maybe floating the idea that we're going to give $10,000 signing bonuses to anybody that comes for a doctor in the community, or whatever her idea may be. It certainly makes it a lot better if council has sign off prior to that, and saves confusion and a lot of things like that. So I guess, again, just summary of it is that the lead on projects would come back with sort of the direction that they want to go, get council sign off on it, and then how it's implemented can either be through staff, with staff support, or the councillor themselves.
So anything that a councillor does on behalf of the village has to have the clear support from the council.
Well, all decisions, the way the municipality is set up, like the roles of responsibility, it's by motion of council only is how decisions are made. So the council either provides that mandate through a motion, or makes a motion on the hiring. Like, say, for example, a hiring committee. The council can appoint a hiring committee and give them authority to hire if the dates don't work. But typically the hiring would come back to council as a whole to make the motion, depending on the time frame.
So again, to return to my example, I could be talking, or any counselor could be talking to healthcare professionals about ideas and so on. But if we come up with an approach, I wouldn't just go ahead with that approach before I would be bringing it back to council to say, here's an approach that seems to be something that works. So what about the question of counselors doing things as individual volunteers in the community? Like, there are some things that several of us have been involved in pre-council and will be involved in post-council, right? Things that we're involved in that we're not doing as a counselor, we're just doing because of what we're doing. But things that we start while we're on council, there's, I suppose, a bit of a risk of people understanding something to be an initiative of council, unless we're very clear that we're starting that as a, I don't know, as an avid reader, a sportsman, a sports fan or something like that, right? Like, do we have to, like, what if somebody wants to go to town with something that's it's related to our plan, but they're doing it more as a, like, say, a green initiative, like somebody starts going at some sort of a, I don't know, volunteer composting thing, and it's kind of compatible with what we said, but it's not an official thing of council. Are there concerns that we have to be aware of so that we don't confuse the public with what we're doing, whether it's an initiative of council or not?
Yeah, I think that sort of, like you said, comes back to what the actual task is. Like, say, for example, if someone on council wants to start a separate association, separate from council, like, say, be president of minor hockey, or start a athletic program or something like that, yes, we do offer sports and rec and stuff like that. But if it's arm length from council, where council's not the decision-making body for that group, then the councillors certainly can fill their boots, so to speak, and work hard on whatever their passion is for projects in the community. But it basically comes back to who's the decision-making authority for that group. If the decision-making authority is village council, is it a volunteer board out in the community? That would be to me, I guess, dividing point, so to speak.
Okay, I'll just invite counselors to make any comments or ask any questions as we launch the achievement of these goals. Oh, Sheldon, go ahead.
Perfect. Sorry. I think, some of this started with me sort of maybe sending out a couple of emails and trying to get the initiatives moving. I did that with the idea that we have limited amount of staff to handle all of these things. So I guess my thinking is, if we have a green initiative and we see what the goals are and what the priority actions are, if somebody wants to volunteer, as long as they're hitting the spirit of each of these and communicating back to council, then that's a good thing. So I take from this conversation that it is still a good thing, where there is some members of council leading it, keeping staff informed and council informed based on what they see as goals and priority actions. So is that still the case? Is it something that we want to have happen, or is this something that?
Oh, no.
Mhm.
Oh, yes, Shelley, now the counselor being engaged and working on issues and getting educated and fleshing things out makes for a better council member and a better council to have the extra time is as you're aware and council's aware too, that the strategic plan, this is from the municipal, from the admin staff, these projects are sort of in addition to all the day-to-day operation stuff we do. So we only have limited time and resources to do that. You're bang on there. And as far as any counselor doing research on whether it be how to recruit doctors or green initiatives or housing needs, and come back to staff or the rest of the council with ideas on housing or green initiatives or public safety, you know, that's awesome. The total success we have will be the total amount of our efforts as a group, but council and staff. So certainly the more effort council members are willing to put in, that's certainly a bonus, and we'll certainly try to support council members as much as we can.
Thank you. Perfect.
I appreciate this discussion we're having because I was wanting to be sure that I had a good idea of which of the different actions were things that counselors would participate in or not. And then I got thinking about the things that I might be a quote unquote lead in. And I thought, okay, how active should a lead be, or can a lead be, and in what ways? And so I've jotted down this question about the decision-making authority for the group. And so I'm so pleased with our strategic plan, and I do welcome all the councillors to get actively involved, but I do want us to be very clear on the roles and responsibilities, so we don't, so that we are definitely all working towards the goals that we set and not getting off track in any way.
Yeah, and the whole point of us doing these strategic plans in part is to eliminate some confusion on the direction of council. What happens from experience in communities that the council members are all over the board and not following a strategic plan. If they're all out doing their own thing without buy-in, it certainly leads to some council issues at the council table. For example, I know of one community where one of the council members went to Fredericton and bought a new pickup truck because he thought the municipality needed one without the approval of council, without tendering it or approving it. So there's the more communication we have in our decision making, and part of the reason too is to keep council focused through this strategic plan, that look, here's our 5 priorities, this is where we want to spend our time. Let's not try to get sidetracked during the term, especially this time where it's such a short term, to I guess keep us focused and accomplish things.
Okay, any questions, additional questions or comments from councillors? Okay. So we'll go on then to capital asset management. So Dan, I think there were a lot of documents, a lot of pages about this in our packet, and I'm not sure if I looked at them as closely as I should have. So here you go, and you've got lots to tell us and explain to us. So I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, so basically what I've done, Jamie, I guess got to me this morning, our updated 21 asset management plan. I have a chance to get through it. We did do a process since the session that we had a couple of weeks ago, where we've gone in and a lot of those zero rated assets, so to speak, we've extended a lot of them out, because obviously we're not going to be able to do them all this year. So we sort of push some things out. So what I went through here was just sort of a summary of each of those areas of the asset management plan where we do have some issues and what we'd like to cover off. And one of the issues that's on here also is a sidewalk policy that we sort of, when we looked at those, we've got roughly 20 kilometers of sidewalk in the municipality, and it's kind of hard for us to decide which sidewalks to keep or not to keep and where to expand without some type of policy of council. So I'll basically skip or go through these relatively quickly. If anybody has any questions along the way, just don't be shy to interrupt me. The first one is the light utility. And one of the issues that we have there is our aging substation. When you look at that, the main structure here is the transformer pad area of the substation. This transformer now, it's a 1970s model. One of the issues we have is that we only have one substation that comes into the municipality. And if we ever had an issue there, we would have to bring in a portable substation if there was one available. There is, we did a few years ago when we did some retrofits at the substation. There's a pole here, you can sort of see the shadow of it. That one is hooked up to connect a portable substation to it. So if we were very lucky and something happened to this, a severe lightning strike or something like that, that was catastrophic, we would be able to bring in a portable sub. But the issue around that is that if MB Power's portable sub is already in use at another substation in the province, and we may not be able to get one here in a timely fashion. So that basically leaves the municipality without power for a few days. So there's different options that we can look at, and we have an engineering company now looking at it about the opportunity of potentially twinning the transformer pad area over in this direction. So we basically build a new transformer for the substation here. We would switch it over to be our main operating unit, and then the other one would sort of be a backup unit. So be basically building a half a substation, so to speak, right within the existing one, so that if we ever did have issues with the existing transformer bank, that we could switch over to, in this case, would be from the new one to the old one. But Councillor Green, you had a...
I was just saying, I can't see your mouse on it, Dan. So were you going like to the left or the right of it when you were saying here?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, to the left of the, where it says distance 16.1 feet, be to the left of that. And so that's one of the things to improve reliability, but also a way to update the substation. And we would keep the old transformer bank as sort of our backup for the new unit down the road. So this is something that we have the engineering company now looking at. I know Rolly's preference was to twin the transformer pad. He thought would be the right direction for the municipality. And obviously we don't need to decide on this direction tonight on any of these, because there's a lot of these for the different entities that I'll go over with you. So the next issue that sort of with the light utility is our demand side manage. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jason.
Ask another question, Dan, before you go on. If we twinned it, would that also like having less, I'm assuming less of a usage or power pull or whatever on the existing substation, would that like extend its lifetime too?
Yeah, I believe that with the substation for the backup, that would be something, from my understanding, that we would just maintain the oil levels and do our regular maintenance and upkeep on it, but it certainly would extend it where it's not in use and wouldn't get the wear and tear. Yep, good question. Okay, so this one is demand side management, and this is how the utility is billed for our energy overall. We have a blended rate now that comes in a per kilowatt charge, but this is basically how it's done. So basically, there's two components to the bill to the municipality. One is for the peak that we reach each month, and the other component of the bill is the actual energy consumed. So just to use easy numbers, if our peak is 5 and our sales are half that, then our load factor would be 50%. So I'd ask Jamie to do is come up with our average monthly load factors for the utility, which you can see over the years of averaging anywhere from 65 down to 58.1. And just to explain this in simple terms is that the peak that we pay each month is a flat rate. It's from that 1 50-minute period during the month that we hit our peak. So if we hit 9 megawatts of demand, that's what we pay for that month. Now, so anything below that, as far as energy sales go, if we can draw the whole month at the 9 megawatts, our load factor would be 100%. So basically, we don't have to pay any demand charge on the additional energy charged if we're selling it at times that are off peak. So a lot of utilities now are doing demand side management things. St. John Energy just recently put in the largest Tesla battery pack in North America for their system. And what they've done with that, they're able to use that to shave their peak. So instead of trying to lower the consumption, they're trying to lower the peak on the system. So a lot of utilities are investing money that way just to lower their demand cost and trying to shift consumption off the peak. So that's what a lot of places are doing. So what I've done with these numbers is I've sent them out to the other municipal owned electric utilities just to sort of see, are we in range? Are we not? From my understanding, St. John Energy reached one of their best months and they were at over 80% was their load factor. So that's a very good number for a utility. I think if you look at ours, we've only reached that level maybe once in all those years. In 2011, I think it was the only year we reached 82%. So you can see ours is a lot lower. So I'd like to get a feeling from other communities, because it will certainly save our customers some money if we can lower the actual demand side of our bills. Now, one of the issues we have is we're billed on a per kilowatt charge each month, but it's based on a blended demand and energy fee, so to speak. So that's something we have to sort out. So I just want council aware that, when we look at conservation items and trying to save our customers money, that one option for us is to take a look at the demand side management also. And this is done through several different ways, whether it be through potentially controlling hot water tanks to having incentives for people to lower bills during certain times. There's all kinds of things we can do there. Does anybody have any questions on demand side management stuff? I know it's a bit confusing, just to throw that out there. It's a different concept that, we pay for the peak and things. I think the document that I shared in the SharePoint site, it shows sort of the background numbers associated with it, where you can actually see how the calculations are done to come back to these percentages. So,
Well, I'm just going to be honest and say that's a little tricky for me to understand. And I'm going to see if I can find kind of another explanation, like what you said, kind of listen to what you said a few times. Because I feel like this is a significant thing, but it might have gone a little fast for my brain at this point. So I hope we'll return to it and you'll explain it repeatedly for us, or at least for me. I'll be the only one that admits that I need some time to understand this.
Yeah, and no, there is a lot to this, and like I say, I'd like to get my head around too, if this is, how big of an issue is it for our utility? Like, are we a normal utility when it comes to this load factor? Or a lot of it depends on the type of customers on your system. If you have peaking customers versus customers that have a steady load all the time. So a lot of it depends on the makeup of the customers on the system, but no, Mayor Bell, I'll certainly be following back up with more information and suggestions on how we might be able to tackle this. Okay, so the next, this is the last one on the light side is flood mitigation. That we do have some lines that are in the flood zone and also need to be updated and replaced just because of the age of the structure. Now this one, it's hard to tell here, but if you look at the top of the green line, that's the road coming down to the bridge. And we currently, the power line ends at the end of that green line coming down the hill. And you can sort of see it faintly down through the brook area. And it's hard to tell from from this overhead image, but the poles are way down at the bottom of the base, and there's quite a high side hill behind those.
And I'm just going to stop you. I'm not seeing a green line. I'm seeing a yellow line.
Oh, sorry, yellow line.
Okay, so
yeah,
I was looking for a green one, but you're talking about that
Right.
yellow line. So just tell us what intersection we're looking at right here. This is at the end of the bridge, you said.
Yeah, this is. Can you see my cursor? Or
No. No, now I can.
Okay. Yeah, it comes down. This is the little mini mall at the end of the bridge.
Righto. Okay,
Yeah.
you can start again.
Yeah, and currently the line comes down this hill and stops here and runs down through this brook area over to a pole here, and then comes back out to the booster or the booster for the water and sewer to go to Perth, or the boost station for sewer, sorry. So the thought is we run into a lot of issues every year. We have power outages along this line down in that gully. So I think we talked about this briefly once before about, we've got two options. One, either extend this overhead line down somewheres to keep the same alignment as the existing line down till it gets here. And I don't know if you've noticed along that street, we've had the surveyor mark off some stakes along the street there when you're over by. So we basically, there's a little concrete wall for a former basement that's sticking up somewheres in this area. So then the new power line, in theory, could go down along here. Now, traditionally, there's pros and cons to backlot feeding stuff and running it on the front property line. Previous councils in the past have been concerned about overhead wires in the downtown area. That's why on the Perth side and the Andover Main Street, the street in front of our office, we moved the power line to the back to rear lot feed. The problem with rear lot feeding is that over time things grow up, and whether you have access or not becomes an issue. So I guess what we're looking at is we have to redo this line. So we prefer not to redo it down in that gully just because of the outages we have there every year. So I guess the thing is, do we come overhead from here to here? The cost, I don't have an exact cost estimate, but the issue around if we want to go underground, obviously that's more expensive because we have to pour concrete over top of the wires in the trench. But also the Rogers and Alliant companies, they would view that as a more expensive way of doing it, and they would want the municipality to pay the differential on their costs. So, for example, if their cost was $30,000 to go one way, and if we wanted it underground, that drove their cost up to 60, they would want us to pay the differential for that, because they would view that as a community request for a different type of service. So that's basically the route. And I don't know for this council, I was sort of hoping if people could take a drive by there and sort of take a look at where those stakes are and sort of envision an overhead line going up that street to see what you think of it. And if you're okay with it, that's fine. We'll do the stake and detailing, but the cost estimate, I'm assuming, to do the overhead or underground, would be in a $60,000 to $70,000 additional to do that underground, depending on the scope of work and what the Alliant and Rogers bills would be.
Dan, would this be a question that the Light Commission group would want to have a say in or put in?
Yeah, typically with this, these issues, it's been a council thing on aesthetics and things.
Yeah.
That's sort of been a
It's not,
council.
yeah, it's not really about the delivery of the power. It's more about what do we want it to do to the town. So it's a council decision.
No.
Okay. So this is the first time we're talking about this. And so again, I'm going to ask, when will it be that we actually make a decision or give direction? Would that be in a month or in November, later in November, or?
Well,
for
for this,
tonight?
yeah, for this particular one, I guess this is something that I'd like to bring back up because we would like to, we need to upgrade that line. So it'd be nice to know what council's preference are. Now, there is another option that we can't go up through the gully with it's sort of like a triplex wire. I don't know if people have noticed it in other communities, but where there's sort of 3 wires in a triangle, smaller triangle, and it's a real heavy cable. And so in many situations, a tree can fall on that, and the power will still keep going. It won't cut the power out. Summerside uses that a lot throughout I think their whole system is set up that way. But there's pros and cons to it. It's very expensive. And if we do end up with a tree down in that gully on the wires, we still have to get down and get the tree off it. So there's still some issues there. The good thing for the customers, it's live. I guess in some cases, it's not been good for animals, because if that line, for example, did get knocked down to the ground, one of the issues is that it's potentially still live. Well, it's at a lower level, potentially, if it did get knocked down. So there's some pros and cons to that type of line. So in talking with Rolly, I guess we really weren't pushing that as one of the better options. Rolly sort of like the idea that, look, that's sort of out, it's all in the wide open there. There's not any commercial development in the area. It's on the opposite side of the road of the riverbank and the view of the river. That I think he was sort of recommending that we go with the overhead just because of the ease of access and the cost also.
Now, what about the proposed new bridge? If we were to lose our bridge in a flood, and then that would mean that the access to the bridge on each side of the river is changed, would that be impacted by a new bridge on ramp on the Andover side?
Yeah, I guess that's sort of up in the air right now. My understanding is the new bridge would be north of that. It would be,
Oh, that's right, yeah.
somewhere's in that area. So I don't know, in that design, does this end up being an off ramp for the bridge or not to come down into Andover? I'm not quite sure of the plans, but I believe that we should be far enough south here in this direction to avoid the new bridge.
Okay, councillors, do you have enough information there to be thinking about that over the next few weeks? Okay. Oh, Sheldon has a question or comment.
I was just going to say, would we be able to get the financials of all of the options over the next 2 weeks as well, while we take just kind of visual inspection and do our own research? Is that something that's achievable?
Oh, it certainly would be. I'll talk to Matt Nicholson and just sort of see that the one thing that probably wouldn't, Sheldon, would be the estimates from Alliant and Rogers. We found them extremely slow getting project information done. I've had a request in now for 3 months on a potential line relocation cost. As we're finding some of the other partners don't necessarily have the ability to respond in a timely fashion. I don't know if that'd be the polite way to say it, but I can certainly give just rough estimates.
And just one additional follow-up: is there any weather restrictions to when we do this, or timing restrictions? Is this something that needs to be done, before December 20th, and then if not, it won't start till April, sort of thing?
No, I think what we would do this year, if council signs off, it doesn't need to be done this fall. If council was set that that's the way they want to go, if we could get the poll set this fall, to get ready for work in the spring once it clears. I guess that'd be our preference. But having said that, if we wait till spring to set, I think this is roughly only 5 poles. So it's not going to be a huge amount. Like we'll have to set a pole here where we cross the brook out to the edge of the trees here. Set one here, one roughly here, and then I think we need to replace this pole at the river crossing station. So it's not like it's a lot of work to set the poles, but if council did make a decision, we had time this fall, we'd get her done.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that question. Okay, continue on.
Okay, and then this is the I guess the issue like around the water and sewer rates and things that we have is picking off some of these projects. And just so people on council are aware too, that we have the Gulch Road, we have a section of pipe there that's showing as 1905 from the Gulch, from the old reservoir that come into the municipality. And we still show some of that being still used in the Perth Main Street, where it comes down over the hill at the upper end by the I guess by Village Automotive up in that area. Now we have done some things along that section of where we have done some new PVC pipe, but we still have the old sections also that we still rely on. So of course the Andover well in the flood zone, as council knows, that's been a current priority, and that's why I highlighted these current ones. The Perth Hill booster station is a 1979 model. I'd certainly like us to take a look at that one. It's by far our older booster station. The newer one in Andover, of course, is up on Fred Tribe Road that was driven by development. Fortunately or unfortunately for all of our other water stations and sewer lift stations, they've all been flooded. So we've had to update all the pumps and motors and the electrical part of it. So we've done a lot of work there. But fortunately, it's not flooded on Perth Hill yet. So we still have that older station that we need to, we should be taking a look at. And as mentioned, the Perth Main Street, like from the back street all up through the front street, we've run a new water main up the back trail most of the way to in behind Cindy's building, I believe, or somewhere in that area. But we still rely on the old main out on the main road for services to some of those buildings. So that area is certainly something that should be looked at. We have in some of those areas, although we fixed a lot of them, we have lead connections is how they used to do the service connections with lead fittings. I believe we fixed a lot of those over there over the years, but we haven't fixed all of them. The Hillcrest loop that goes in around there, that's an area that we certainly have some issues here. We only have for whatever reason, back in the day, we just ran a 2-inch line in around there. That's a project that certainly council could look at doing. We have some stormwater issues from SVHS and also along Perth Main Street over there. One of the issues that we've run into is when they did the riprap years ago in the community, they covered over the storm drain pipes that go out to the river on the Perth side with the riprap. And I believe the thought at the time was, well, we'll protect the end of those pipes from ice and ice tearing them out, I'm assuming was the thought behind it. But the issues we've had is those lines, we can't tell where they are, where the water's going. We end up with some flooding issues on occasion and things. So it'd be nice just to be able to locate those and get the ends cleaned out so we can see where they are. For example, a few years ago, the one on the Bank of Montreal parking lot, we spent probably $10,000 trying to find the end of that pipe years ago out by the riverbank, but nobody seemed to know where it was. And one of the options we talked about there was it would have been cheaper looking back just to start digging at the manhole and just dig a new pipe all the way out to the river would have been the cheaper option at the time. So there are some issues with that. And the stormwater issue we have at SVHS is, and this is something potentially we should be lobbying, council should be lobbying the government on, is the roof drains from SVHS go into, I guess, an old system, and some of it's going into the sewer system. And SVHS is aware of this. What happens if we get a huge rain? We end up with the sewer lift station at the high school overflowing, basically. And by overflowing, I don't mean out onto the road in the parking lot. There's an overflow on all of our sewer lift stations that goes out to the river. So by having the schools stormwater issues go back into our sewer system really isn't acceptable. The Department of Education knows this an issue. They brought it to council a few years ago and asked council to do, they wanted us to put in, I forget the size of the line, it was like a 16 or 20-inch line out to the river from the high school. And council took the position at that time was, no, look, if a developer causes an issue on our system, you're not supposed to have it hooked there anyways. If anyone's going to pay for the water or the upgrade of the storm drain to the high school, it should be the school, the Department of Education or DTI or somebody. And of course, that hasn't been done. So the other thing is we've got an older pickup, and with our pickups, we're looking at doing too. Hopefully, it's with our green item is upgrading those to electric trucks when we get time to. And then we also extend the water and sewer lines along Fred Tribe Road. To me, that's one of the things that I think is an easy thing to sell to the public, that if we're extending services in that area, that's certainly, if it's going to create more economic development, potentially more jobs in the community. And this is for the parcel of land that we're hoping to get from DTI on the corner up there. Assuming we get it, this would certainly be nice to be able to do that. And we also have on the Andover side, which is, it's kind of unique, we have a water main that runs down through the brook in the back of Fort Road, sort of behind Dave Hoyt's house, back in that area. There's for whatever reason, years ago, when the water came from the old reservoir, that's where they ran the pipe to get down into the end of Park Street. So that's sort of an issue there. It's certainly not preferred option to have the pipe there, but I guess the good thing about it is, since it's in the brook, if it had a leak, we wouldn't know it anyways. But so that's a bit of an issue. And if, for example, if we were going to pave Fort Road over, council should really take a look at, are we going to move that pipe out before we pave it? Because if we're going to spend $300,000 or whatever the number is to repave Fort Road, it'd be nice for council to make the decision on what we're doing with that water main prior to that. Where would we relocate it? So, and about our asset management plan, a part of that's about spending it wisely. Let's not pave a street and then dig it up 2 years later for a water and sewer project. So that's an issue. And of course, the Andover well, where it's flood mitigation, that's certainly a priority. So that's it on the water and sewer stuff, I believe. Does anybody have any?
So I see Sheldon's hand up, and I don't know if that's from the previous comment, Sheldon, or if you have a new question or comment.
Apologies, I usually lower it down now.
Other questions or comments from councillors? So Dan, what I was seeing in that presentation was some of the needs that are not common knowledge to the public or even to councillors, that would lie behind the need for an increase, even a 2% increase in the water and sewer rates. It's not just a matter of it costs more to deliver water or manage the sewer. There's all these underlying asset management issues, and we do have some reserves. But this is all part of what we have to manage as part of delivering water and sewer services to the town. So this goes along with that whole discussion that we began a few minutes ago about that budget. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. You're bang on. The increase for the operation cost is sort of like, for example, the 2%. That's sort of trying to maintain our capital portion of the budget with a 2% increase, so to speak. But let's be clear to everybody too, is that to take off these projects, for example, it doesn't take long. The Andover well in the flood zone and extend the lines along Fred Triborough, which were the priority of the last council. That money basically eats up the entire reserve fund, and we don't have any money. So it's these things are expensive. Again, the total replacement cost of all this stuff is nowhere near what it is. Like if we come back with a 10-year plan for capital projects to pick off some of these bigger units, I'm 100% sure that it would come back with a huge increase to the water and sewer rate to meet the capital needs. Yeah.
And if we don't do, like, we're just pushing them down the road if we don't do something. Like, we have to be looking after these things all the time. This is what asset management is. We just can't kick it down the road or postpone it for another council, let them do the nasty work of coming up with the money for these things. The other thing is that we have applied repeatedly for additional government funding for some of these things. And then that would, like you said, if we were to do the Andover well and the extending the water and sewer along Fred Triborough, that would eat up all our reserves. But we have repeatedly petitioned the province for special funding, RDC funding or whatever for these projects. And so that would mean not so much that we are sitting pretty, but then we could dedicate some of our reserve money to these other things that, like, even with the years you have on these and the size of these lines and so on, they're all significant projects, and they're not glossy, but part of taking care of what we have is keeping them in mind and making plans for when we're actually going to address them.
Yeah, and you made a good point, Maribel, is that for years, council always tried to leverage the water and sewer reserve fund with federal and provincial dollars. So, for example, if we saved up $300,000, that potentially meant we could do a $1 million project. But for whatever reason, it's been a long time since we've been able to access some funding. We did get some funding after the flood, but I think that ended up maybe coming more through DFA for water and sewer line extensions than it did from New Brunswick's infrastructure project, so to speak. I'd have to go back and check on that, but I believe that's correct. So yeah, it would be great. I noticed the minister or MLA was on Facebook talking about all the wonderful projects and bridges that they're looking at for down in the southern part of her riding. It would be great to get somewhat, I guess, our share, an equal share of the funding that's being given out to the southern part of the riding, and the northern part would be awesome. And any leverage that council members have that can I guess encourage that'd be great.
Any comments or questions from councillors before we continue on? Okay, continue on then, Dan.
Okay, and then I'll try to get through these a little quicker. But if you have any questions, don't be shy. We've got to street services reached maturity, probably about 26 in the community. The cost to upgrade those is approximately $2 million. One thing we are finding the past few years is patching costs of increasing, and that's more due to the condition of the roads that we're having to do more. The Fort Road, roughly a $300,000 estimate just to upgrade what's there. That's not including if council wants to do anything different with curbing or sidewalks or anything additional up there in that area. That road, and I'd like council to, when you're out looking at things, take a drive on that. We've spent a lot of money patching that area. I think we had a quote just to fix one area at the bottom this year, and I think the estimate to fix one area was $12,000 just to fix one area. But I'll give our staff credit. We've been doing a lot of the patching ourselves and running a roller and using our truck and a contractor's truck to haul the asphalt. So we've done a great job there, but the costs are just going up due to the condition in our streets and not getting back and paving them as often as we should have. Now we've done over the past couple of years, we did Columbus Street up the industrial park area. We've done London and Foster. We've done the portion by APD. It would be nice next year to finish the, I guess, remaining street where you come in, where the intersection of Columbus and the industrial park street is at that intersection, all the way to the top of the hill by the mill. It'd be nice to get that one done up so we'd have the entire park, I guess, upgraded the paving of it. And the chip seal streets, we normally do those every 8 to 10 years. And basically what we've done in the past, we've done, for example, all the chip seal streets in Perth one year and all the chip seal streets in Andover the next. And again, chip sealed streets are basically the unserviced lots in the community, and the paved streets are the ones with services. Is how council sort of done our asset management plan there. And the thing that I talked about earlier, and we'll talk about it, is the clear policy on sidewalks. And then we have some guide rails in the community that needs to be done. And currently our paving budget for the community is typically like $100,000 is all we've been able to afford in the existing budget for paving each year. So I guess the recommendation would be that for the next 3 years that we look at whatever priorities council has for roads and sidewalks, and look at potentially a budget of $500,000 for the next 3 years. It could be funded in part through our normal operations, gas tax, and reserve funding. And that portion is just for the streets and sidewalks, and of course curbing, things like that. So that's sort of what I'd recommend there. And again, that's money that, for example, only 100,000 of that would come out of the operation budget. The other would come from reserves, gas tax, or if we were fortunate enough to get some federal funding to support some of our projects. So I'll just skip right into the sidewalk thing. If you have any questions, we can go back to the street stuff. Oh, sorry, I missed this. I got a couple more that I'll get to before I get back to it. The fire protection, we've got a 1999 crew cab and pumper that's come to replace. Normally we try to replace trucks in 22 to 23 years. This one, it appears now, at the best won't be replaced for probably another 3 years. Our understanding now is a delay on trucks is 2 years. Metal Fab is apparently going to half staff during this winter, just because they don't have trucks to work on, is my understanding. So they're sort of laying off some of their staff due to lack of vehicles. So that's going to drive back the delivery time on these, and it's also impacting, I believe, the cost of these vehicles. Again, as I mentioned, everything seems to be going up, unfortunately. The generation connected to DOT building, that's our EMO center. We'd like to install a switch there that we could pull up a generator and hook onto the building, and additional generators. I do believe right now this year we do have the opportunity to get some funding from environment and local government to help out with that project through EMO. There's money in the LSDs for that project, so I believe we're going to get some support there. And general government is just the flood mitigation for the municipal office, and just general building repairs and IT. And again, these were just sort of the groupings in our asset management plan. And rec and culture, the big issues right there in the short term is the energy management system should be improved or updated. The lobby washroom update that we've talked about, one of the issues around this has been around the future of the fitness center and the new municipal building, what's coming and going in that. What will we do with the space in the fitness center if we if we relocate that portion of the building. So whatever renovations we're doing in the lobby, it'd be great to know the direction that we're going with that part of the building. Another thing we're running into there is the sprinkler system. It's getting, I guess, some issues with it and the age of it. We're going to need to update that. That's probably going to be a $300,000 item, I believe, to replace the sprinkler system in the rink. We have two systems there now. We have a wet system that covers the main part of the building, and we have a dry system out over the ice surface for obvious reasons. So you don't want to have a wet system out where it's freezing. But the problem that we find with the dry system is you have to test it every so often. So you test it and put water in it, and then you try to drain it, but there ends up with slags in the pipe where the water sets and eventually rust out. So we've had to replace a few sections of that. So that's something that we're going to have to address. The fitness center equipment, we've been sort of holding off a little bit on that. We try to buy a piece every year. And again, an older pickup. One of the issues that also to keep on the radar is the pool. The actual pool wall is 32 years old. The actual building, there's no issues, of course, too, with the building. We should be able to get 70 or 80 years out of the building. But the pool wall may have to have some work done or look at it. I believe Florenceville, who built their pool 2 or 3 years before ours, from my understanding is that next year they're going to tear up their pool portion. They're going to keep their building, but they're digging theirs up to replace it next year. So hopefully we won't have to do that to ours this quick. Hopefully we'll be able to get a few more years out of it, but it's certainly that's on the radar. And another thing too, the Memorial Arena slab that we have for, I guess, for use for our skating rink in the wintertime. It's kind of an eyesore in the community. We did have an estimate this year to pave it, which it might be something for council to consider. We did an option for that. It was, I believe, $28,000 or $29,000 to pave the entire arena surface. And thinking that we could use it maybe for some other things in the summertime for a basketball court or court nets, potentially maybe pickleball, hopscotch, different things we could paint on it. Of course, the issue with that is where it's located. Do we fence it off to sort of protect it, or there's kind of those discussions we'd have to have, or council would have to have. So those are some of the areas on the recreation side. And here's the one I was talking about on the roads and sidewalks. So I'm sort of trying to come up with just sort of a framework for council to start thinking about, is that we've got about 20 kilometers of sidewalks in the community. A lot of it's older vintage. Some of it's on streets that no longer have homes on them, that should either be torn up or just left, I guess. So the one option for council to consider is a policy that sort of outlined how we were handling main roads. And by main roads, these would be the provincial roads within the municipality. So one option would be for council to say, okay, look, the raised roads, main roads in the community, they're high traffic areas. We feel that we need to have a raised sidewalk with a grass buffer for all provincial roads within the municipality. So basically what that might mean, for example, on the Perth side, is from, I guess, Galen Hansen's building down to the village limits on the Perth side, that we would do raised sidewalk there, and areas there we could certainly do a buffer. And of course, there's issues around raised sidewalk as far as the capital cost, but also the snow removal in the community, or the cost for that also. And then for secondary roads, the policy could perhaps, and this be for our side streets, that widen asphalt road widths to allow pedestrian use, and chip sealed streets just widen the gravel shoulder. And raise sidewalk on secondary roads where safety issues exist based on volume, type of traffic, visibility, etc. So for example, up in the industrial park area, where that's a lot of truck traffic and high residential area, should there be a raised sidewalk in that area? Would sort of be the thought behind that. And in areas where there's high school traffic, homes of a certain type or a certain number. For example, a dead end street with 6 or 8 homes on it wouldn't necessarily warrant having a sidewalk on it. And then the trail system, looking at our walkability for the community. Maybe council might want to consider having a asphalt, have the entire trail in the community asphalt. We need to do some repairs and upgrades to the existing portion that is asphalt. And perhaps maybe too, a long range goal would be to have a paved trail that goes all the way from our municipality to the former train bridge at Aroostook. To create a nice pedestrian trail, active trail between the two communities. So I guess if council, and then I'm not asking council to make a policy decision on this tonight, but to put some thought into this on where you would like to go with our sidewalks, because in the asset management plan, it's hard for us if we're looking at different streets, because council's been at best inconsistent on how we do sidewalks on streets, residential streets. For example, on Meadow Street up on top of the hill, we put in a curb and widened the asphalt. We, instead of doing a road width, I think we increased it by 6 feet. So instead of putting the 6 feet sidewalk paved behind the curb, we put it in front for snow removal purposes. It's just easier. And based on the perception of lack of safety issues on the secondary streets of pedestrian traffic, that we're not getting a lot of people walking. And if we do have people walking, typically it's one car every so often on the street. It's not a steady flow through a main artery. So those are some of the food for thought items, and that's just sort of a draft framework for the policy. And I'm certainly open to council's suggestion and inputs, because this will be your council, your policy at the end of the day. So whatever you'd like to see it, we're more than happy to put.
I have 2 things I want to say about the sidewalk policy, but first I'm just going to invite anybody on the council to ask questions or make comments about this, a draft framework. Sheila, go ahead.
I think it's extremely important for us to develop a sidewalk policy, because it has been so haphazard, and then people complain that they don't have one. If we have it written that, if it's a provincial highway, that this is what it has. If it's give our rules and regulations, and then there's not change our mind and say, oh, well, so-and-so lives there and they're complaining. No, just make the rules and make it last.
Yes, I agree. In fact, I think what we'd have to do on that secondary road part where it says a raised sidewalk on secondary road where safety issues exist, I think we have to go into a little bit of a detail there with maybe a bit of a scoring, because some people might say like on my hill, that although it's a dead end, there's children and there's a slope or something. So what is a sidewalk necessary? And I don't think that there is, but I think we'd have to dig into the details of that part. And I guess I'll go ahead with my other comment, which is that I do believe it would be another option that would have to be in the policy, that the residents along a street would have the option to pave, to add a sidewalk that they wanted to pay for, right? It's not going to happen very often, but if there were a group of neighbors who were on a strip that did not qualify for a municipal sidewalk according to our policy, some people would say you can't tax the whole village higher to get a sidewalk on one street, but possibly those residents could pool their money and cover the cost. I think that's something that, Dan, you say has been done in other places.
Yeah, that's permitted now within the existing Municipalities Act. I forget the local betterment. I don't know if it's the right term or not. So if a group of residents in a certain area would like something, they can petition council to do it and agree for a tax increase of X% for so many years to pay for the betterment.
Okay, so that's how they do it. They pay for it over a number of years. They don't all throw money into a hat.
Yeah.
It could be something that somebody could leave in their will, I guess, too, for their neighborhood.
So I'll expect you to have a sidewalk in yours for the hill.
we've just seen a lot of different items here on some of our infrastructure and our assets. And that's a lot to take in, but I will just invite anybody on the council to make a comment or ask a question about any of the last few minutes asset management slides. And I see Sheldon's hand up. I think it's again rather than still.
Correct. It's a new one. I still would like to see the entire asset plan and the risks for all of them, because I think while these are obviously the top risks, I think there is some value in seeing them all, because there may be some things that we are particularly interested in elevating for reasons that may not be apparent to the risk score. So future considerations. So I'm thinking there's a lot of movement in terms of, you know, potentially moving the municipal office. You know, you've already weighed in on some of those things, like should we buy new equipment in a building that we're moving, or should we be doing certain electrical upgrades if we're moving a building? So is it still possible for us to see the entire asset plan?
Yeah, I was hoping to have that prior to tonight. Like I mentioned earlier, I just got the 2021 version of it this morning, and I just want to go through it again, but I'll certainly get that posted in the SharePoint site hopefully this week.
Okay, excellent. Yes, sorry, I guess I forgot that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
What else would councillors like to ask? Jason, did you just unmute?
I did. Just and going through it too, and this just popped into my head on, like, I see some of them as nice wants or nice would be nice to haves, but some that are certainly not sexy but needed. So like that asphalt trail to Aroostook would be awesome, but when we're talking about the cost on Fred Tribe Road, I would see that a better use of placing asphalt kind of deal, right? So that's just one that jumped out at me, is that would be a nice, but I also see so many of those infrastructure, those key infrastructure things you had listed earlier as a higher priority.
Yeah, and that'll be the challenge for council, is to say, well, look, here, we're going to commit to, and this, I'm sort of hoping to be the discussion around our budget is how much do we want to commit to capital projects over the next short period of time, whether it be 2 years, 3 years, something like that, to put something in the books to say, look, here's our policy. So I was sort of hoping to get from council is sort of like, out of these, and I'll come back to the next meeting with, say, okay, look, here's roughly the cost of the big items, and just a rough cost, and give that to everyone for some food for thought before we have the discussions around budgets and things like that. Because as you can see for any of these items, like there's probably just in the main priority items here, there's probably, you know, $6 million worth of stuff just in the main priorities. So just to do a third of this would be a couple $2 million. So, and let alone if we, for example, a new municipal building, you know, that's going to be a $3 million item, probably, depending on the scope of it and what's going in there, and whether it's a green building, a LEED type building or not.
Anyone else? It's quite a sobering list of needs that you've shown us here, Dan. I mean, I know we're talking millions and millions to eventually take care of everything here. And then by the time all this gets taken care of, new things will have emerged and other things will come into line. So we'll have some tough decisions to make over the next few weeks.
Okay.
Let's continue. Okay, so number 7 is correspondence, and we have none, so that's handy. And then we're on to reports, number 8. And so we had lots of documents to look at. Municipal department report first, and some quarterly statements.
Okay, I guess on my chart here, I've got the financial statements first for some reason. I hope I didn't lose my department report. No. Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'll do just the financial stuff first. The first one is just the village statement, just sort of showing where we're at year to date. I know council had all these, so I don't know if I need to go through them. But also if council has any questions on them, please feel free to email me. You can sort of see here our net income year to date. A lot of that depends on the time of year when projects are done and when bills are paid. So the village seems to be going along at the same clip as last year, a little better, but we still have, for example, we haven't paid for the plow truck yet, which would be $120,000 of that we're going to have that bill. So once we pay for that, it sort of brings us back to the actual year to date, the same as last year. And the water and sewer statement, you can see our year-to-date actual in 2021 is down a bit from the 2020 number, but it's basically the same amount there. And then the light sales. The light year-to-date is 124. Last year-to-date, C40. The big changes there is our energy services. The revenue is up there. We haven't installed as many mini splits this year as we have in the past. The demand seems to be slowing down on those. But in addition to that, our income off the rental program is increasing. That energy services number there, that's not just the mini split programs you can see from the detailed statements. That's also street light rentals and some other miscellaneous charges that we have in that line. And the expenditures, 651 year to date. Now, one thing that we, with the new tender on the light to the distribution system maintenance, we are paying now an additional on-call fee that we weren't paying in the past. It's an additional, I believe, off the top of my head, I'll say $18,000 to $20,000 a year more for the on-call, just because the contractors that all of them bid it wanted to have a set fee per week to be on call, where before that was sort of built into the rate. So that's one of the reasons for the cost being up on the electricity side. So again, I know everyone has the more detailed statements, and if you have any questions on any of the details of it, just shoot me an email, or if you have any now, if I can't answer them, I'll certainly get the information back to everybody.
Does any counselor want to raise a question or a point at this time? Okay, so you may get some email questions, Dan, but we'll continue on.
Okay, so this is sort of the what we've held over from the previous report for the, I guess, our operations report. So you can sort of see some things here that sort of stand out. Some items, for example, the huge web service registrations being up. That's basically because of our swimming programs and our rec programs opening back up again, that people had to register to sign up for the web services. The solid waste, as I mentioned, is up 6% this year, which we sort of hope at some point that go the other way. Our recycling, due to the large bin collection, is up, but our curbside recycling is down 4.3% this year. And just some of the other things, of course, the Civic Center energy consumption's been down just because we were closed for a prolonged period of time or shortened hours. The staff have done good managing the energy consumption there. And of course, the revenues are starting to pick up again at the fitness center and different projects or events we've been doing. Our power outages this year, we've had 6 year to date, and I'll tell you, we're very fortunate for the number and the duration of our outages in the areas they impact. I believe our longest outage this year was caused by something that happened at Tinker or in northern Maine that caused our outage. As far as outages on our actual system, they've been relatively limited in scope to the areas impacted. So that's been nice. We mentioned earlier in the year we were able to find that leak, so our well consumption is down, and you can sort of see, of course, the waterfront usage was up again this year, and our webpage is getting some more hits. So I'll sort of skim through. So basically, what I've done for the and I put this in the I guess the format of our strategic plan. That's where I was talking about earlier, trying to do something to, I guess, hold staff and council accountable for getting these projects done. So I was sort of thinking that monthly we would report on what we've done on each of the items in there. So for example, if a council member has done some work on some of these items, if you want to bring it up during the council member report during the meeting, or if you want to shoot it to me and I'll add it in here. If I know about it, I will add them in here. So these were sort of the format that we had, with the goals at the top here, and then the priority actions here. And then what I'd like to do is each month report on what we've actually get done on each one. So we've talked about the I guess what we've done. We've received some pricing on cameras for 3 different locations in the community. Back to security thing, but council would be nice for council to come back and say, look, here's some areas that I think we should consider also. So that I put some of the things that we've done, and I put things that Councillor Shaw had mentioned, research system on patrol and reach out the RCMP, and I know he's done some other things also. We've done some crime prevention tips, and we also, there's an upcoming crime prevention workshop being sponsored by, that should be the RSC, not RCMP. From the email I sent out to council the other day. And then the green initiatives, what we've done, we've contacted the community regarding their efforts so far in a rideshare program, waiting for information back. We do have some things coming up. We have for council and staff, a session for our community energy plan for an implementation workshop, which will be on the 16th, and I'll put the dates and times, and that's during the day. I'll put that in the council SharePoint site in the calendar. And then also the part 2 of that session, which will focus on communication and stakeholder engagement, will be held on that Friday morning. We also, along with the group with the other municipalities that we're working with in the region on the energy mapping project, there's a survey out. We had it in the newsletter last week, and I'll share a link to council members to share in your circles, where we're trying to get to gauge the region's interest on renewable energy in the region, to get feedback. We've gotten so far over 120 responses or something, I believe, in the region. And by the region, I mean from Woodstock to Perth Andover area. And there will be a virtual community open house next Monday evening, where the group will be presenting the mapping, where we've looked at the possible locations for solar panels and also windmills in the communities. So it's sort of an open house to hopefully keep people engaged around the survey and interest in green energy, and to gauge the involvement with that. So that's something we've done so far. I've been working on, I guess, for council has for the past 2 or 3 years now, with different forms of that. We've got 3 EV chargers up and running. We're hoping to install this week the cement pads for EV chargers at the hospital parking lot area, and then a single charging station in front of our building here on the corner. And then we've had some discussion on green purchases with the staff already, just trying to say that, look, let's put a green lens, like council talked about, for all of our purchases, that we try to look at green options for any purchases. And then for housing, there's not a whole lot been done in the past week and a half on that file, but we'll certainly, hopefully, in the next meeting, have more to report there. And then asset management, we've reached out to Englobe. We'll be working on the sidewalk review for us and the crosswalk design. To sort of take a look at where we have them now. As council talked about, what do we do about sidewalks up in the Fred Tribe Road area? How do we address pedestrian traffic up in that area? Staff working on proposals for a new energy management system that wouldn't do just the Civic Center, but potentially the Public Works building, and eventually be compatible to connect the new municipal building if that project goes forward. Of course, the paving that we've had done on those streets, and we've got the review and update almost completed on the asset management. Like I say, when I get that done, we'll push that out. And then the last slide I have on this is sort of the municipal and community services side, projects there at the top, and then sort of the projects that we're working on, some of the ones that we've been working on right now. Some I've mentioned. The MEU group had a meeting with the Minister of Energy, sort of curious about the upcoming revisions to the Electricity Act. The minister assured us that there wouldn't be anything that would be impacting the municipal utilities or in the short term or long term. We also extended our help to work with the province on energy or greenhouse gas reduction or any climate change issues that the municipal utilities are more than happy to partner with the province to help them meet their goals. And we've been doing some work, of course, with the Canadian Municipal Reform Committee from UMB. And Public Works, we've been in the Light Commission sort of doing our seasonal prep, finish up capital projects. The guys did a great job. They put up the Legion banners last week, and they've started already doing the prep for the Christmas decorations. And of course, the Civic Center is open. The fitness classes starting back up. We had to do some plant improvements in the fall. Our ice rentals are down slightly again this year. I think Justine told me 2 to 3 hours less than last year. And then some upcoming things. We've got our community energy plan events that I mentioned earlier. Trail signage budgets are the big thing for the next couple of weeks, and getting ready for our Christmas in the village stuff. So that's our new and improved reporting, and hopefully keep us more on task and accountable where it is such a short term. And so what the goal is that the next month, any of these actions that were done this month will be taken off. So you'll actually only see the actions done in that month. If people are happy with that, that's what we'll keep doing.
I think this will be useful. The one about the Englobe one where they're looking at sidewalks, that also includes crosswalks, I believe, too. I didn't see the word crosswalk there, but I know that the middle school is very concerned, and community people in that neighborhood are concerned about the need for a crosswalk for students and buses and so on, right at the Fort Road and Nissen Street. And so we definitely want to be investigating crosswalks as well as sidewalks. What do you say, councillors? Do you think this will be a good way to keep our focus on our strategy? I'm seeing nods from the people whose faces are showing, and I agree.
Looks great.
Good. Okay. Fire department report.
Yeah, just the year-to-date calls. You can see compared to last year, our calls are down by 10 from last year to this year. And don't know how much. We can move right along.
Dan, I see, yeah. Dan, there was an applicant there. Is that Tyson Hovey? Is it just an application? He's not on yet, or is he on? And what's our current standing?
Yeah, that's on the notice of motions down below. I added it this afternoon, so I'll be a motion for later on.
And do you know what our current membership is?
Yeah, we're below our quota. Yeah.
Okay, so we're on to 8D, and I see it's 8:20, and I'm not sure, we maybe have half an hour or 45 minutes remaining in the meeting. I wonder if people would need a 10-minute break or whether we sally forward. I'm seeing no, so people don't want a break, is that what you're saying? If anybody wants a break, wave your hand
You
really.
can't, you can't say, do we want to break? We don't want to break. Is that what you're saying? Because then you got to go this and this.
I know.
We want no break. We want to keep going.
Okay, let's keep going. Okay. We're on to 8D, UMNB update. And so Dan, you probably you don't have anything to update here. It would be me updating, is that right?
Yes, I didn't have anything. I see
Yeah.
the newsletter come out today, but I didn't get a chance to look at it.
Yes, I would encourage everyone to look at it, and I will just mention that there is a Zone 6 meeting on Wednesday night, 1 hour long, 6 to 7, and you will you're all encouraged to attend to that. The board of directors is having a meeting this coming weekend, and so I will be representing our community and Zone 6 at the board of directors meeting, and so I would really encourage Ian Kitchen, the mayor of Naquick, and I really want to be sure that we hear what Zone 6 people are concerned about before we go to the board of directors meeting. So I would encourage you all to go to that. All right, we'll go on to 8E then, which is the mayor and council. I just have a few things to mention. A lot of these things you already know. There was a lotto committee and village council meeting that we had in the second part of October there, where we divided up donations to some great organizations in the community doing things. I attended the UMNB webinar on conflict of interest in procurement. I don't know who else attended that on October 20th from our community, but it was really good. And I will just say that the different webinars that UMNB is making available in every case have turned out to be more valuable than I expected. There was new information on conflict of interest that I had not really understood clearly before, and I thought I understood all very well. And then how to purchase things and how to do RFPs and things so that things are fair. It was really great, and I've got notes that I'd be happy to share with anybody who wants to see them. I've already talked to the council in our strategy session about the RSC meeting with the Department of Justice. There have been some meetings with different people about COVID and so on. And then over the last weekend, there were numerous conversations with some stakeholders and media about the announcement about obstetrics. So that's the highlights of what I was doing. And I will just invite anybody else on the council to report on any significant workshops or meetings or events that they participated in. I know Deputy Mayor McPhail attended something on our behalf at the Regional Service Commission. Do you want to say something about that, Tammy?
Sure. Yes, I attended that meeting. They wanted the budget approved, and we had that beforehand. So I guess that went through pretty, without any issues. A lot of conversation on policing, and they're planning on, I think it might have been in some of the other information, organizing a event for 100 people that want to attend. So that was another thing we've had information on. And one of the interesting things that they talked about was what they're going to do about chipping of Christmas trees. And Dan sent a little note, and I was sort of I had no idea what we did. I know the Rotary always collected the trees after Christmas, but I didn't know what they did with them. Last I knew, they burned them, but apparently they've chipped them. And apparently the other parts of the region have had that paid for, and we've been out of the loop. So I'm not really sure where that leaves us, but I guess we're going to get it for part of their group from now on. So and so then the next meeting, they're going to have a report from the RCMP on December 9th. So that would be probably quite interesting, I hope. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Does any other counselor have anything they'd like to mention? Sheila, you just unmuted.
Yeah.
What would you like to tell us?
I was at the Lotto committee meeting as well, and I was in several times signing checks while you were away.
Thank you for that. Anything else from anybody else? I will just again remind you that there's lots of great places to learn things, especially things supported by the Union of Municipalities. But and the RSC meetings, depending on what they're having, although we only have one vote from our community, from our municipality, observers can attend too. So if anybody's interested in attending the RSC meeting where the police, the RCMP are slated to come, just let us know before that date that Tammy mentioned, and we can make sure that you can get on as at least an observer. Okay, if there's nobody else wishes to report anything, we'll go on to number 9, which is bylaws, and I don't think we have any bylaw action today. So we're on to our notices of motion. So there have been a few wording changes to the strategic plan, parallel structure and grammar things, but we developed a really inspiring and focused strategic plan. And so the motion will be to approve it. So Dan, we are approving not just this cute graphic, but also the action points as well.
Yes, it'd be the final the one that was earlier in the package.
Yes, and it said final on it.
Yeah, right on.
That had all the grammar improvements.
Finally.
So we were all working cooperatively on this, and unless somebody has had some new thoughts or objects to some of the finessing of the grammar, we could entertain a motion to approve this strategic plan.
I'll move that motion to approve the 2021 strategic plan.
Thank you, Sheldon. Would there be a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Tammy. Is there any discussion? So what we're not really calling it a 2021 to 2023 or to 2025, or we don't really have an end date on this plan. This is the strategic plan for now until it needs to be, until we can accomplish as much of it as possible, or until it gets replaced by something else. I guess that's how it works, right? We might have had an end date on a previous plan. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, all in favor of approving the 2021 strategic plan, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Good. And so how will we be delivering that plan, showing that to our community, Dan, in a way that they can understand easily?
Yeah, one option, what we did last time is we sort of put it into a text in sort of like a report format where we had written sections on each part of it. That's something we'll look at doing again, just to put a bit more description to it about the priorities for each area and things like that. But I'll certainly circulate a draft of that to council for input and suggestions.
Sure. And maybe in the immediate future, we could say that we approved our plan and that these are our, at least our categories or pillars or whatever they are without the details. And then people would know which areas we're focusing on.
Yeah, and another thing too, that for council too, like the strategic actions that are in there doesn't mean those are the only ones we're going to do. Like if council comes up with along the way a great idea on housing or something else that's not in there, by all means, we'll keep improving on it.
Yes. Good. Okay. Well, that's great. We did really good work that weekend. And now we have a motion to approve a new addition to the fire department, Tyson Hovey. And so, Dan, sometimes in the past, it seems to me we've even seen more details about the person, but I presume the fire department has done whatever they do to assess this candidate and are recommending this person for approval. And we are really just accepting the recommendation of the fire department. Is that how this works?
Yes, that's correct. I think in the actual council package, I had the actual form in it. But this, for the motion part, we've always, our council's always accepted the recommendation of the fire department. They have a process they go through for their nominations and approval and things, so.
Right. Okay, would we have some? Thank you,
Sheila.
Thank you, Sheila. And is
I'll
there a
second
second?
that.
Thank you,
I'll
Tammy.
second that.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion to approve Tyson Hobie for membership in the Perth Andover Fire Department, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. And number 11, new business. And so we saw some documents from this organization on the SharePoint. So Dan, what can you tell us here?
I guess there's 3 documents posted there: the rural crime prevention, proven crime prevention programs, and the provide evidence on the effectiveness of crime prevention. So those 3 documents are here. This group, the Canadian Municipal Network for Rural Crime Prevention, they're the group, as I mentioned, and Tammy mentioned, the RSC is hosting, sponsoring a workshop. I believe they charge $300 to have a workshop in a region. We're allowed to have up to 100 people participate in the workshop. So we'll certainly want to get some participation from council. But this information, we're food for thought for council members, but also Councillor Shaw, who's stepped up to take the lead on several of these issues. So all good stuff. And like I say, once we get that date for those workshops, we'll certainly circulate it, and staff will sit in on it also.
Yeah, I don't know how many councillors had a chance to take a preliminary look, but there's some very interesting stuff there. And it's certainly not looking at just long-term or just short-term. There's all kinds of different aspects of crime prevention that are addressed there. And so I think I'll be wanting to participate in that session that the RSC lines up. But I hope we have good, I think we could probably have everybody on the council participate and we wouldn't take over the crowd. Any questions or comments about that? I do encourage every councillor to read it all.
I did look through, I think there was 2 different documents there, right, on the SharePoint, Dan, is that right? I remember looking at 2 different, I don't know if it was the same one twice or not.
I think there was 3. I think there was 3 actually.
Yeah. And I noticed that a lot of one of them anyway, was a lot about youth and student and dealing with those kind of issues, which I don't feel that a lot of our issues around our break-ins and whatnot are youth-centered. They're more drug-related, I think. But there are some things I think we can do recreation-wise that might help address some of the youth issues as well.
And that even helps us when it comes to budgeting, because when we're thinking about spending our money, there's overlapping goals achieved if we spend our money in one way. Like if we spend money in recreation, that does have an impact on not just quality of life, but sometimes crime prevention and mental health and so on. Any other questions or comments from councillors on this? Okay. Well, then we are at number 12, which is an in-camera session where we have a few legal issues to discuss. So I believe we will need to have a motion to go in camera, and then we will have to end the recording. So could we have a motion to go into closed session then? Jason, thank you. And a seconder, Sheila, thank you. Okay, all in favor of going into closed session now for legal issues, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. And we'll end the recording now.